Is the Trump-Musk administration destroying the FAA so they can privatize? I don't know, but in this first term, he was trying to do it. Impeach fascism. Please like and subscribe. I started putting this script together after the DC plane crash, but plane crashes and chaos kept happening, so I couldn't get this info out. This is the chaos that allows corrupt fascist dictators to rise to power. I would like to get into the horrors of privatization and the rise of the oligarchs in Russia during the 90s, and the effects on inequality of Russia following the fall of the Soviet Union. But I'll make another video for this. Go to BeasleyAllen.com. They did an analysis of aviation under the Trump administration and the FAA under the Trump administration during his first term. This information is a little bit dated, but go check it out. It's useful for knowing what he's going to try to do during this term. On January 22nd, Donald Trump released this fact sheet. President Donald Trump sends in DEI madness and restores excellence and safety within the Federal Aviation Administration. His own administration is incompetent, and the only reason they're there is DEI. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. In Donald Trump's administration, DEI stands for didn't earn it, because none of them have the competency that they need to do their jobs. There's been a huge increase in aviation incidents since Trump was inaugurated and started to gut the FAA in his goal to force the privatization of the FAA as he injects chaos to dismantle the FAA, leading up to a string of deadly crashes. These crashes are unprecedented. We haven't seen this. Are we really getting back to that word? Is this really going to be another unprecedented presidency? The COVID incompetence was nothing compared to the past few weeks of plane crashes, security breaches by Doge, and other things that have been taking place in the federal government. The Wall Street Journal released this article on February 18th. The FAA fires hundreds of workers, sparking concerns about air safety. Staff cuts hit employees who support aviation safety and security operations as agency grapples with recent airplane crashes. And I started this presentation after the DC plane crash, but new plane crashes kept on coming up over the past few weeks. While I was trying to finish up this presentation, I saw Occupy Democrats release this. 2 small planes just collided midair in Arizona. This was yesterday, leaving at least 1 person dead. This is the 6th plane crash in less than 3 weeks, an astounding figure that has raised serious concerns about the safety of air travel in America. Here's an article from CNN. On February 17th, in Toronto, at least 18 Delta Airlines passengers were injured and transported to hospitals after the crash landed in Toronto. That's from Delta Airlines. I don't think this has been directly linked to Trump and Musk related to their dismantling of the FAA, but in my opinion, they are responsible for all of the chaos in our skies right now. From the USA Today, how many people have died in major airplane crashes this year since Donald Trump has been inaugurated? At least 85 people have died in 4 major U.S. aviation disasters in 2025, just since Trump-Musk took office. It's a disaster. Here's an article from ABC News on February 14th. All 67 people on board the plane and the helicopter were killed in the DC plane crash. When the American Airlines plane flew into the Black Hawk helicopter. Here is a February 17th article. Trump begins firing of FAA staff just weeks after the fatal DC plane crash. The Trump administration has begun firing several hundred Federal Aviation Administration employees, upending staff on a busy air travel weekend in just weeks after a January fatal mid-air collision at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Here's an AP article. A medical plane carrying a child patient and 5 others crashes in Philadelphia, setting homes ablaze. This crash happened 2 days after the January 29th DC plane crash. So this was January 31st in Philadelphia. This chaos is what sets the recipe for fascism. This article from The Guardian, again, it refers to Trump firing FAA staff, including safety workers, despite recent crashes. The president's moves to cut Federal Aviation Administration workforce, as critics say, public safety could be endangered. The Trump administration has begun firing hundreds of employees at the Federal Aviation Administration, including some who maintain critical air traffic control infrastructure, despite 4 deadly crashes since Inauguration Day. Seems to me that Trump and Musk are creating chaos with the goal of privatizing the FAA. It appears they are creating situations that have caused many deaths in our country and could put our airlines at risk of collapse, as passengers are scared to fly, with Musk and Trump politicizing the FAA with the goal of privatization. Privatization of the FAA is not safe, especially if Musk is involved. Allowing a man who destroys everything he touches to be able to fire people at the FAA is not safe. Trump, Musk privatization of the FAA would put citizens' lives at risk. Here's a summary of the 5 recent crashes: Toronto, DC, Philadelphia, Alaska, and Arizona. The Trump administration has implemented several significant changes to the Federal Aviation Administration that have raised concerns about aviation safety and regulatory oversight. The administration has made significant leadership changes within the FAA, including the departure of Administrator Mike Whitaker in January 2025. His resignation left the agency without permanent leadership, potentially affecting his ability to respond to aviation challenges. Additionally, several hundred probationary FAA employees have been terminated, raising concerns about the agency's capacity to maintain safety standards and oversight. President Trump, in collaboration with Elon Musk, has initiated efforts to privatize the nation's air traffic control system. This move aims to modernize and streamline operations, but has sparked debates about potential impacts on safety and public interest. Critics argue that privatization could prioritize profit over safety, leading to reduced oversight and increased risks. The administration has engaged private companies such as SpaceX in discussions about enhancing air traffic control systems. While this collaboration aims to leverage technological advancements, it has raised concerns about the potential for conflicts of interest and the adequacy of private sector solutions in addressing complex regulatory challenges. On February 17th, from the Daily Mail, they were discussing how while Tom Costello from NBC was discussing the Toronto plane crash, he was pointing out Trump's air traffic controller cuts during the plane crash coverage. In the Toronto plane crash, all 80 people survived. It looks like 15 people were taken to the hospital. Maybe I've seen that number 16 somewhere. Further, this was from the AP also. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association said in a brief statement Monday it was analyzing the effect of the reported federal employee terminations on aviation safety, the national airspace system, and our members. Other FAA employees who were fired were working on an urgent and classified early warning radar system the Air Force had announced in 2023 for Hawaii to detect incoming cruise missiles through a program that was in part funded by the Defense Department. It's one of several programs that the FAA's National Defense Program manages that involve radars providing longer range detection around the country's borders. Due to the nature of their work, staff in that office typically provide an extensive knowledge transfer before retiring to make sure no institutional knowledge is lost. This program would protect us from long-range missiles coming from China, North Korea, and Russia. This is a conflict of interest for Trump, as he has been receiving money from Russia since he lost his father's $400 million fortune in the 90s. He's been propped up by Russia, and he owes them everything. By gutting a program to detect incoming cruise missiles, he is playing right into Putin's hands. This is exactly what Putin wants him to do. This is just like Ukraine, with him wanting to give Ukraine to Russia. He's trying to tear down our defenses to Russia's aggression. On February 7th, an Alaska plane that disappeared with 10 people on board was found with no survivors. It's just odd that we're seeing all of these plane crashes right after Trump gets inaugurated and after he laid off FAA staff and continues to do so. Here's another article from the AP. On February 10th, a pilot on a private jet owned by Motley Crue singer killed in Arizona aircraft collision. This NBC article quotes David Sparrow. This decision did not consider the staffing needs of the FAA, which is already challenged by understaffing. Staffing decisions should be based on the individual agency's mission-critical needs. To do otherwise is dangerous when it comes to public safety, and it is especially unconscionable in the aftermath of 3 deadly aircraft accidents in the past month. A union spokesperson said that close to 300 of its members received termination notices over the weekend, and that those affected worked as maintenance mechanics, aeronautical information specialists, environmental protection specialists, aviation safety assistants, and management and program assistants. This same article continues. President Donald Trump tapped the world's richest man, Elon Musk, to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, an advisory commission that is targeting government agencies for massive layoffs. The same FAA that now faces layoffs also regulates Musk's company SpaceX. The FAA last year proposed civil penalties against SpaceX over allegations of licensing and safety violations, after which Musk threatened to sue it. The FAA oversight of Musk's company has serious implications. In mid-January, for example, a SpaceX rocket explosion affected dozens of flights, prompting detours and sending debris into the Caribbean. The FAA ordered SpaceX to conduct a mishap investigation. FAA officials have in recent years warned that the agency was understaffed and that employees were operating in a system that was already overstressed. So the FAA is being gutted by the person they've been investigating, the person that is threatening air safety, Elon Musk. The flying public needs answers. How many FAA personnel were just fired? What positions and why? Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said on social media Monday. Is anyone else missing Pete yet? I am. This concludes part 1 of the FAA presentation. Look for part 2. I've got more. Thank you.